Hi everybody, it's Doug at Willy Nilly's. We're going to show you how to build the Wee-Souix constant chord wing. This particular example we're going to do the Sioux that was originally designed by Joe Wagner, but we've resized it smaller. So and it's a little different construction than the original. It's got our slot and slot and tab and slot. So that's an example of what she looks like here. This one. Don't look too close at my tissue covering. It's kind of wrinkly, but not too bad for not doing it for 30 years or so. Okay, so the parts that come in your kit, this one right here is your spars, your leading and trailing edges, and rib sheet. And that's all the ribs you need for the whole airplane, and your center section sheeting. And on your fuselage sheets, you're going to have gussets for your wingtips, and you also have your wingtip right there. That piece there is the tail skid, or the lower vertical fin. So round these pieces up, and we'll get started. Get this out of the way real quick. I've already went ahead and built a left wing because the left and right wings are built identical, except for there is a right and left. Make sure you build a right and left wing. Very important. There is a definite difference. Okay. We can put the center sheeting away for a second. Okay. There's a rib. You have to be fairly careful with the ribs, and because they're made out of contest grade 1/16 balsa, so they're really light. They're not as fragile as what you would think, but still you have to be a little bit more careful with this particular kit because we're trying to keep it as light as possible so it will fly as good as possible. Okay, got the ribs out. And we will go ahead and pop all these little vent holes out. They're not any lightning effect to them, but they let the air flow from rib bay to rib bay, so you don't get any wrinkles in your covering or any of that type of stuff sitting in the sun or whatever. I guess I should be saying something. Make sure you don't pop all these out on your dining room table or they'll be all over the place. Do them over a workbench or over a trash can. Your wife will not appreciate it. Trust me. Not good. Okay, so we got those. Oops. Now get all those little things out of the way. Something else to do is to keep your kit bag. Keep the bag that your kit comes in, because the quick glue will not stick to it. So it makes a great build surface. For this airplane, you want to, it makes it a lot easier if you have a building grid board like this. What I like to do on these flat bottom airfoil is I've already got the plastic taped down, is I'll tape the trailing edge down lined up, and I'll have it where I can easily check the square on it. First thing we want to do is identify the center of the main spar. The center of the main spar, let me see if this will focus, is at an angle to set your dihedral. So that this has to be towards the center of the wing. The wingtip is completely flat, or 90 degrees. So you really need to make sure that this is to the middle of the wing, whether you're building left or right. This has to be in the middle. That sets your dihedral angle. You don't need any gauge or block it up or anything. It's built into the center spar. Okay, now your leading and trailing edges are slightly different. The center of the leading and trailing edges are thicker. They don't have the gusset cutouts. So these have to be towards the center. Okay, now keep in mind this is the center. We're building a right wing because I've already built a left wing. All right, so the simplest way to do this, okay, that is your center rib for left wing, and the next rib is undercut also to allow space for the sheeting. I like to go ahead and just lay these out. The only other different rib is the wingtip rib, and it'll have all the extra holes. On other wings that in the Wee series are going to have some different wingtips, so there's extra holes cut in here to allow for ease of installing those by putting a drop of thin CA in the holes. All right, so now we have our ribs laid out in the order they go. We're going to go ahead and just slide them on the main spar. Try to keep this in frame. You can see it's not a real snug fit, but it's snug enough that they'll hold themselves in place. That's on purpose. Okay, once you have, don't worry about putting your wingtip rib or your very center rib on yet. What we want to do now is line up the notches and the tabs for your trailing edge. Get those all lined up. It's just a little bit fiddly, but once you have it in place, it goes pretty easy. Just take your time, push it in place, then line up your leading edge. You can, once you have those lined up, you'll be able to tell because the very front of the rib will come just not quite to the very leading edge. And that's to allow us to round it to airfoil shape. Okay, we're ready to glue. What I like to do is just double check to make sure that it's square on the grid here. And once that's the case, I'll put a drop of glue there, drop of glue there, and I'll put a drop right on the spar. Give that a second to set up. Then I'll come down to the next outer rib, put a drop on each spot. Let that set for a second. And then once that's all secure, I'll just make sure your rib's seated and put a drop of glue on each joint. Don't glue your finger to it. It's easy to do. If you use the thin CA, it'll wick right into these joints very, very well. And this is all the gluing you'll have to do on these wing ribs. I already did that one, but Okay, well, that's setting off good. I don't know if you can see it in the camera, but there's little smoke signals coming up. Let that set for just a second. Okay, been a second. And we'll go ahead and untape our wing from our build bag. And as you can see, even though the glue ran down into the edges, it didn't stick to that plastic. So keep that in mind. Save that plastic bag. It works really good. Okay, we're going to put the wingtip rib on now. Again, just a little fiddly, but once you have it locked into place, it sets pretty good. And when you're gluing these light structures like this, you don't want to be putting a whole lot of pressure. I'm just barely hanging on to this thing, because when you start having to squeeze and push and twist, you're going to induce warps and all kinds of nasty things into the wing. You don't want to do that. On the fuselage too. Okay, so we're going to get this center rib lined up. Again, just a little fiddly. But once you get all three in there, now as you can see, it has a pretty pronounced dihedral in it. You want to make sure that rib is flat, nice and tight up against that main spar. And once you do that, make sure it's seated well in the front and the back. And it just takes a little drop on each one. Okay, now I like to come back and just put a tiny drop on each one, just to be safe. It doesn't take very much at all. Okay. Now, you want to be careful because there's going to be some sticky glue on there. So what I kind of like to do is just give it a light spray of accelerator all around when I'm in a hurry like I am right now. And that will set off all that glue. Let it air out just a little bit. Of course, I got accelerator all over my building bag. Get that wiped off of there. Okay, so the wingtip on your fuselage. Let's see. You'll have these gussets. Takes 2 per wingtip. One is the correct size and one is oversized. Again, that's on purpose. What I found was that if we try to make the gusset for the rear, the aft doubler, it gets to the correct size. It's just too small to handle. It's just too difficult. But if we do it the correct size, it didn't want to come loose. Did I get it now? Okay. Okay, because of the way we have to sprue these pieces, you'll have to just lightly take those sprue ticks off of there. Just a light. Okay. All right. This is going to be real scientific here. It works easier if you have a pencil or pen. And what we're going to do, of course I don't have a pencil. Lay your wingtip so it's flat, and then draw a line with your pencil. That way you're going to draw a line with your pencil right here. And once you have that marked, get a pen. Pencil, so I can show you. Oh, here's a broken pen. That'll work. Okay. Well, basically what we're doing is we're just, this is going to give us a reference mark. Oops. Where to glue our wingtip braces. You'll see, oops, you'll see that I want to line it up at the top edge. I like to do the first one right on the main spar. You want to drop a quick glue on there. Oops, I got her a little crooked. Okay, there we go. I know this will look a little odd at first, but that's exactly the way you want it to look. Let me get it in here closer. This is probably the trickiest part of this whole wing. It's this wingtip, but we wanted to make it look like the original. Okay, for the rear brace, you want to go up 3 holes. Again, 3 holes from the back. Oh, glue my finger there. And it doesn't, there we go. Hope you guys can see this. Put a drop of glue there. Don't glue your fingers to it. Try to keep it 90 degrees. You see that doesn't look right, but it's almost impossible to hold it when it's the correct size into place and glue it. So we did it oversized. It's real easy to trim off once you're done. Okay, so now, oops, got it out of view. So now, line up the leading edge of your wingtip with the leading edge of the wing. And you'll see that lines up pretty good. Now I like to take a drop, glue there. Make sure you don't glue your finger. Double check it's still lined up good. And put a drop on the aft one. Okay, that should be set up. And then you can run a bead of glue down that joint. Okay. And like I said, you can take a knife and trim it off, which is the easiest way to do it. I like to use one of these big knives so I can get it out where I need it to. And you can see it trims off pretty quick and pretty easy. And finish it off with the sanding block. Just be careful when you're sanding. These ribs disappear real quick. When you're on the rib itself, I prefer to just do kind of a wipe, just to get the char from the laser off. It doesn't take much, and you know when you're done, because it'll go from the charred color to the natural balsa color. Don't go any more than that, otherwise you'll start changing the airfoil. Okay, so wingtip's done. Of course, you want to finish sand it, make it all nice and pretty. If you can sand the bottom, I usually wait to sand the entire wing until I have the center section sheeting in. Okay, so now we're going to do the center section sheeting. Got a piece here. Got these two pieces, which are the top, and then we got the bottom piece. Okay, again, because of the nature of how we have to do this laser, you're going to have a couple little notches. You just want to lightly take it off. Don't sand these too much or you'll be undersized on your wing. Okay, so you'll have one small piece that goes on the bottom front of the spar. Then you'll have a bigger rectangle piece that goes on the bottom after the spar. And then these two pieces form the top. And you'll have to glue, it's easiest to glue these two together before you install it on the top. So let's glue this center section in here. Again, just a light pressure. Make sure it's lined up with your root rib. And I just, I'll run a bead of glue there on the spar and on the rib here. And must have had some get through. That's all right. And we'll put some on the trailing edge. Okay. Okay, so we got that one. The forward bottom one, again, if you want to lightly sand. This one we did make just slightly oversized. So you might have to sand just a little extra to get it to fit just right. It ain't going to be much though. I'm using 180 grit. Not much more, just a little. Get on the other side. Take your time with this so you get a good fit. See, there we go. That's good. That's almost too much. So don't do what I just did. Give you one good sand, check it, another stroke, sand it, or check it. Don't go 4 or 5 like I just did and then realize you took just a little too much. But it'll be all right. This one's going to end up being a display flying example. So we'll end up taking this one to shows with us and let everybody have some fun with it. Okay, again, I'm going to take off those edges, those little tabs. Okay, and your building bag is your friend on this joint. Make sure they're lined up edge to edge and everything. Then you can just run a bead of glue right in that joint. Fire it off. And see? Magic building surface there. It didn't stick. Okay. So on the center sheeting, I like to start at the very front first. But what I also like to do is sand a little bit of an angle on the front so it sets a little more flush. You don't have to do this, but it makes it finish out a little bit nicer. So what we want to do is line it up with the root rib. And you'll see that little bit of sanding I did gives it a nice sharp point there. Glue it in there. Then I'll 1 CA. Let it wick in there before it gets to my finger, but it did. Okay. Okay. So now that we got that, this 1/16 contest grade balsa is some pretty nice stuff. You guys will like it. It shouldn't have to wet this balsa to form it around, as you can see. So what we'll do is we'll use our hand just to hold it flush, and then we'll let the CA do its magic and capillary action down that joint and into it. Yep, she's firing off. I can feel the heat. And if we did that right, then the inside section should be just a light pressure to keep it in place. Put you some glue in there. And then you want to run just a little bit of glue right there. And we'll fire that all off. Okay, so there's a wing half ready for sand, ready for sanding. So you'll notice that there's a little bit of overhang here. This balsa will disappear real quick on you because it's nice and light stuff. You just want to sand that top sheeting till it's flush with that center rib. Again, it doesn't take a whole lot. Okay. So joining the wing is a real simple process. I like to use medium CA. You can use epoxy. You can use tight bond, whatever you like. But you can see you're not going to have to add any dihedral brace or anything. The way this wing is designed, it's very strong without any kind of extra bracing, either at the leading edge or the center. Once these two panels are glued together, it's a very strong wing. So you can use medium CA, thick CA, epoxy. I prefer to use medium, but I don't have any handy right this second. So once you glue it together, you can finish sanding. And as you can see, the wings go together pretty quick. The leading edge, a piece of paper here. This would be a rib profile here. As it is right now, that's nice and square right there. You don't want that. We want this to be rounded. It doesn't take much to sand it to get it rounded. And at the back of the wing, you'll notice that the rear trailing edge extends past the tip of the rib. You want to sand that down just a little bit to match the profile of the rib. When you do that, the airfoil will work a whole lot better, and it'll look a lot nicer when you cover it. So if you have any questions, please post them to our build group. Any suggestions, anything you want more clarification on. This is about as simple as a wing as that we can possibly make right now. I don't know how we can make it any easier. So everybody have fun, and God bless, and we'll see you soon. Bye-bye.